I'm a 35-year-old woman who grew up without a father. My mom raised me on her own after my dad left when I was just a baby. I never knew him growing up, and to be honest, I didn't think much about him. My mom did an amazing job as a single parent, and I had a happy childhood despite his absence. Fast forward to about 5 years ago. Out of the blue, I got a message on social media from a man claiming to be my father. At first, I thought it was some kind of scam or mistake. But after some back and forth and verification, I realized it really was him. He said he had been looking for me for years and wanted to reconnect. I was hesitant at first. This man had been absent for my entire life, and now he suddenly wanted to be part of it? But curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet him for coffee. That first meeting was awkward, to say the least. He tried to explain why he left, saying he was young and scared and made a huge mistake. He told me he had another family now, a wife and 2 kids, my half-siblings. But he said he always regretted leaving me and my mom, and he wanted to make amends. Over the next few months, we started building a tentative relationship. We'd meet for coffee or lunch every few weeks and talk. He told me about his life, and I shared bits and pieces about mine. It was strange getting to know this man who was biologically my father but felt like a stranger. During one of our meetings, he mentioned that he had a successful business and had done well for himself financially. He hinted that he wanted to make things right with me, whatever that meant. I told him I didn't want or need his money, I just wanted to get to know him. Things were going okay for a while, but then I started noticing some red flags. Whenever I'd ask about meeting his wife and kids, he'd get evasive and change the subject. He always insisted on meeting in public places, never at his home. And sometimes he'd make comments comparing me to my half-siblings that made me uncomfortable. For example, he once said, "You're so driven and hardworking, not like my other kids. They've had everything handed to them and don't appreciate it." Another time he remarked, "You look just like me, much more than my other children do." It started to feel like he was trying to relive some idealized version of fatherhood with me, while keeping me separate from his real family. I started pulling back and our meetings became less frequent. The last time I saw him was about 6 months ago. He showed up looking stressed and agitated. He told me he had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and only had a few months left. I was shocked and didn't know how to react. Here was this man I barely knew, who was technically my father, telling me he was dying. He said he wanted to make sure I was taken care of and mentioned updating his will. I told him again that I didn't want his money and that he should focus on his wife and kids. He got upset and said they didn't need it and he wanted to do something for me. I left that meeting feeling very unsettled. After that, I didn't hear from him again. I figured he was spending his remaining time with his family. Then last week, I got a call from a lawyer saying my father had passed away. I felt a confusing mix of emotions. But then the lawyer said that my father had left his entire estate to me in his will. His house, his business, his savings, everything. And he had left nothing to his wife and other children. I was stunned. This was the last thing I expected or wanted. The lawyer explained that the will was ironclad and had been updated just weeks before my father's death. He also said there was a sealed letter for me that my father had left with the will. Before I could even process this information, my phone started blowing up with messages and calls from numbers I didn't even recognize. It turned out to be my father's wife and my half-siblings. Somehow they had gotten my contact info and were furious about the will. My half-sister, who's about 25, sent me a long message accusing me of manipulating our father in his final days. She said I had no right to swoop in at the last minute and steal their inheritance. My half-brother, who's 28, left me a voicemail full of threats and expletives, saying they would fight this in court. Their mother, my father's wife, tried a different approach. She sent me a tearful message talking about how devastated they all were, how they were struggling financially, and how they just wanted what my father would have wanted. She begged me to do the right thing and share the inheritance. I was overwhelmed and didn't respond to any of them. I needed time to think and process everything that was happening. I decided to read the letter my father had left before making any decisions. What I found in that letter changed everything. My father explained that he had always regretted leaving me and my mother. He said that in his final months, he had tried to make amends and get to know me. But he also revealed some painful truths about his other family. But the letter contained even more shocking news. My father wrote that he had discovered, through a DNA test he'd taken out of curiosity, that neither of his other children were biologically his. He had confronted his wife about this, and she had admitted to having multiple affairs throughout their marriage. He detailed how his wife had manipulated him for years, using his non-biological children as leverage to keep him in line because he was the one who had signed their birth certificate and legally he was the actual father for her kids. She had also apparently been involved with several of his business associates, and there was a possibility that one of them could be the biological father of both children. This discovery had devastated him and made him think of his entire life. He realized that the family he had chosen over me wasn't even truly his. In his pain and anger, he had decided to leave everything to me, his only biological child. He wrote that his wife had known about me all along and had pressured him to stay away. She had threatened to leave him and take everything he has in court if he ever tried to contact me. My half-siblings had grown up knowing they had an older half-sister but had been told I wanted nothing to do with them. My father admitted that he had been weak and allowed this to happen. He said that getting to know me in his final months made him realize what he had missed out on. He felt I deserved to be compensated for a lifetime without a father. He also added that his other children had grown up spoiled and entitled. They had squandered opportunities and money he had given them over the years. He worried that leaving them his fortune would only enable more of the same behavior. The letter ended with him asking my forgiveness and saying that this inheritance was his way of trying to make things right. He hoped I would use it to build a good life for myself and maybe even help others. After reading the letter, I just felt sad that while I did not know my father, the time I have spent with him showed that he was actually a good man with a good heart. I decided not to respond to any of my father's family's messages. Instead, I had my lawyer send them a formal letter explaining that I had no intention of contesting the will or sharing the inheritance. I did not mention the contents of my father's letter to me. This set off another round of drama. My half-siblings started a social media campaign painting me as a gold-digging homewrecker who had seduced their poor dying father. They posted old family photos and talked about what a wonderful dad he had been, conveniently leaving out my existence. Some of their friends and extended family members started harassing me online. I got messages calling me horrible names and saying I was tearing a grieving family apart. A few even made vague threats about what would happen if I didn't give back the money. My father's wife tried a new tactic. She showed up at my workplace one day, crying and causing a scene. She talked about how they were going to lose their home and how my father would never have wanted this. My coworkers were confused and uncomfortable, and I had to ask security to escort her out. Through all of this, I've stayed quiet. I haven't engaged with their accusations or tried to defend myself publicly. But it's been hard. There are moments when I've been tempted to share my father's letter and expose all their lies. But I know that would only lead to more drama and pain for everyone involved. I did reach out to my mom to tell her what was happening. She was shocked but supportive. She told me that my father had tried to come back when I was about 5 years old, saying he had made a mistake. But when she found out he was married with another kid, she told him to stay away. I guess that explains why he said he had been looking for me for years. As for the inheritance itself, I'm still figuring out what to do. The business my father left me is quite successful, but I know nothing about running it. I'm considering selling it and using the money to set up a scholarship fund for kids from single-parent homes. That feels like a way to honor both my mom's hard work in raising me and my father's final wishes. The house is another issue. It's in another state and much bigger and fancier than anything I'd ever want for myself. I'm thinking about selling it and donating a portion of the proceeds to a charity that supports families affected by cancer, in memory of my father. My half-siblings are still threatening legal action, but my lawyer assures me they don't have a case. The will is solid and there's no evidence of any undue influence on my part. Still, I'm bracing myself for a long and ugly court battle if they decide to go through with it. I know I didn't do anything wrong here. I never asked for this money or tried to influence my father's decision. But I still feel conflicted about keeping it all when I know his other family is struggling. So Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to share the inheritance with them, given everything that's happened? Update 1. Hey, Reddit. It's been about 6 months since I last posted, and things have been a bit complicated. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that's happened since I inherited my father's estate. When I first got the news, I was in complete shock. But now that the dust has settled, well, sort of, I'm realizing just how complicated and stressful this whole situation has become. After my father's passing, I inherited not just his house and savings, but also his business. I had no idea how to run a business, let alone one as large and successful as his. My father's company was well established, with a lot of moving parts. Employees, contracts, clients, the works. I tried to step in and learn as much as I could, but it's been incredibly overwhelming. I've been getting harassed nonstop by my half-siblings and their mother. They've made it their mission to make my life a living hell. They're constantly sending nasty messages, spreading lies about me on social media, and even showing up at my workplace to cause scenes. The stress of dealing with them, combined with trying to manage a business I never wanted, has been taking a serious toll on my mental health. I've been seriously considering selling the business. It's not something I ever wanted or asked for, and I feel like it's more of a burden than anything else. But at the same time, I can't help but feel a sense of responsibility to the employees who rely on it for their livelihoods. I've been discussing my options with my lawyer, but it's a tough decision. As I mentioned in my last post, my half-siblings and their mother have been furious about my father leaving everything to me. Well, things have escalated. They've officially filed a lawsuit contesting the will, claiming that I manipulated my father in his final days and took advantage of his illness to get him to change his will. They're accusing me of elder abuse, saying that I isolated him from them and pressured him into leaving everything to me. Their claims are completely baseless, but it's still terrifying to be accused of something like that. My lawyer has been great, though. She's advised me to consider filing a countersuit for defamation, given all the lies they've been spreading about me. I'm not someone who likes to get involved in legal battles, but at this point, I feel like I don't have a choice. When we finally had our first day in court, and it was a complete mess. Their lawyer presented a bunch of so-called evidence that was supposed to prove I manipulated my father. It was mostly just out of context messages and twisted interpretations of our conversations. I sat there feeling like I was in some kind of nightmare, watching as they tried to paint me as this evil, money-hungry person. But then, my lawyer presented the letter my father had left for me, the one where he explained why he had left everything to me and revealed the truth about my half-sibling's paternity. The courtroom went silent as she read out loud the part where my father explained how he discovered that neither of his other children were biologically his and how his wife had manipulated him for years. It was like a scene out of a movie. The judge looked stunned. My father's wife, who had been sitting there with a smug look on her face, suddenly broke down in tears. She was called to the stand, and under pressure, she admitted to having multiple affairs throughout their marriage. She even admitted that she had known about me all along and had pressured my father to stay away from me. My half-siblings were in complete shock. They stormed out of the courtroom, refusing to continue with the case. The judge dismissed their claims, ruling in my favor and stating that the will was valid and that there was no evidence of any undue influence or manipulation on my part. The case was officially closed, but the aftermath was anything but. After the trial, things got even more complicated. My half-siblings completely cut off contact with their mother. I heard that they were devastated by the news and felt betrayed by the woman they had always thought of as their mother. They've been blaming her for everything that happened, and it seems like their relationship has been irreparably damaged. But that's not where the drama ended. I started receiving anonymous threats, both online and in the mail. People were telling me that I had destroyed a family and that I would pay for what I'd done. It was terrifying, and I didn't feel safe in my own home. I ended up setting security cameras to protect myself. As for the house and business, I've decided it's time to let them go. The house is in another state and is far too big for me. I've never felt any emotional attachment to it. I've made arrangements to sell it, and I'm planning to donate a portion of the proceeds to a charity that supports families affected by cancer, in memory of my father. The business was a harder decision, but I knew I couldn't keep running it. I just don't have the knowledge or the passion for it, and it was causing me so much stress. That's when something unexpected happened. After the trial, I was approached by one of my father's longtime business partners. He had been with my father since the early days of the company and knew everything there was to know about the business. He told me that he had been heartbroken by my father's passing and that he had been concerned about what would happen to the company. He made me an offer to buy the business from me, with the promise that he would keep all the current employees and continue to run it with the same integrity and care that my father had. I knew that selling to him would mean that the employees would be taken care of, and the company would be in good hands. After some negotiations, we finalized the deal. The business was officially sold, and I was able to walk away with a clear conscience, knowing that it was in good hands. I've since invested the money from the sale, and I'm planning to use it to build a life for myself that honors both my mother's hard work and my father's final wishes. This whole experience was new to me, but I'm finally starting to feel like I can move on. I've learned a lot about myself, my family, and what it means to truly make peace with the past. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support. It meant more than you know. Update 2. Hey, everyone. It's been a year since I inherited my father's estate, and I wanted to give you all an update on how things have been going. After everything that happened with the legal battle, selling the business, and dealing with the fallout from my father's will, I've been trying to move forward and build a new life for myself. After selling the business and the house, I decided it was time for a fresh start. I moved to a new city where no one knew about my past, my father, or the drama with my half-siblings. I've been focusing on investing the money I received wisely. I've also been exploring ways to give back, just as my father had hoped I would. I've set up a scholarship fund for kids from single-parent homes, in honor of my mother's hard work in raising me. It feels good to know that I'm doing something positive with the money, and I hope it will make a difference in the lives of others who are in similar situations to the one I was in growing up. Life has been quiet, and I've been enjoying the peace. But recently, something happened that I wasn't expecting. I was at a hospital for a routine checkup when I ran into my half-brother. I almost didn't recognize him at first. He looked completely different from the person I remembered from the courtroom. He was sitting in the waiting room, looking tired and worn down. When our eyes met, he seemed just as shocked to see me as I was to see him. We ended up talking, and he told me that he had been going through a really rough time. After the trial, he and his sister had cut ties with their mother and had been struggling ever since. He had been living on the streets for a while and had recently found out that he needed an expensive medical treatment that he couldn't afford. Hearing all of this stirred up a lot of conflicting emotions. On one hand, I felt for him. Despite everything that had happened, he was still my half-brother, and it was hard to see him in such a dire situation. But on the other hand, I couldn't forget how he had treated me during the legal battle. The accusations, the harassment, the threats, it was all still fresh in my mind. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to help him, but I was also afraid of being manipulated again. I ended up consulting my lawyer about the situation, asking what the risks would be if I decided to help him. My lawyer advised me to be cautious but suggested that if I did want to help, I could do so anonymously through a trust. After thinking it over, I decided that I couldn't just walk away from him in his time of need. But I also knew I needed to protect myself. I ended up setting up a trust in his name, with the condition that the money could only be used for his medical expenses. This way, I could help him without opening myself up to more drama or manipulation. I had my lawyer handle the details, and to this day, my half-brother doesn't know that I'm the one who set up the trust. I hope it helps him get the treatment he needs and that he can get back on his feet. I believe I recapped everything I could remember, so I want to step away from the keyboard and live my life Abbott. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Until next update, bye. Mini update: unfortunately, things didn't go as smoothly as I'd hoped. Not long after setting up the trust, I got word that my half-brother's health had deteriorated rapidly. He needed emergency surgery. I didn't know if I should try to reach out to him or just let things be. In the end, I decided not to get directly involved. I figured that if he wanted to reconnect, he would have reached out to me by now. But I did hear through some people that he made it through the surgery, but his condition is still touch and go. I hope he pulls through, but I'm also trying to maintain some distance for my own peace of mind. This will be my final update, and I want to thank everyone who has followed my story and offered advice and support. This past years has been one of the most challenging of my life. I'm planning to continue focusing on the positive, using the inheritance to build a better life for myself and to help others in need. I've learned that sometimes, the best way to move forward is to let go of the past and focus on what you can do to make a difference in the present. Thanks again, Reddit. I'm finally at peace with everything that's happened, and I'm looking forward to the future.